The Alchemy of Happiness, a thematic and structural exegesis of Imam al-Ghazali's Kimya-ye Sa'adat. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Sufi Essence with Hamid Said. In the annals of Islamic intellectual and spiritual history, few works have resonated as deeply and widely as Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali's Ihya ulum-al-Din, the revival of the religious sciences. Yet, for a broader audience, both in his time and ours, a more accessible and equally profound masterpiece stands as his spiritual testament, Kimya-ye Sa'adat, or The Alchemy of Happiness. This text, written in Persian, was Ghazali's masterful effort to distill the vast ocean of the Ihya into a potent and practical manual for the average seeker. Its central metaphor, that of alchemy, is a profound pedagogical device, suggesting that just as base metals can be transmuted into gold, the human soul, through spiritual knowledge and discipline, can be transformed from a state of inner turmoil into a state of everlasting tranquility and divine proximity. Today we will undertake a comprehensive and thematic exegesis of this seminal work. Our discourse will argue that the Kimya-ye Sa'adat is a meticulously structured spiritual manual, whose enduring power lies in its systematic guidance through four essential fields of knowledge. We will explore how Ghazali's alchemical process begins with the foundational knowledge of self, which then leads to the knowledge of God. This inner transformation then allows for a proper understanding of this world and, finally, a preparation for the next world, where true and lasting happiness resides. Our objective is to illuminate how this masterpiece, through its timeless wisdom, provides a clear and practical roadmap for every individual seeking to turn the dross of their worldly existence into the pure gold of spiritual bliss. Part 1. The Alchemical Metaphor and the Knowledge of Self. The central organizing principle of the Alchemy of Happiness is the ancient and powerful metaphor of alchemy. Ghazali uses this metaphor to explain the spiritual process of purification and transformation. The base metal is the human soul, laden with spiritual diseases, worldly desires, and the animalistic tendencies of the ego nafs. The gold is the pure, radiant heart, a polished mirror for the divine light. The alchemical process is the spiritual path itself, and the philosopher's stone, the ultimate agent of transmutation, is divine knowledge. Ghazali teaches that true alchemy is not the transmutation of lead into gold, but the transformation of the base soul into a heart that is tranquil, pure, and ready for the divine presence. The first major section of the book is dedicated to this foundational work, the knowledge of self marifat al-nafs. Ghazali argues that the key to all knowledge, and indeed to all happiness, is a profound understanding of one's own self. His famous dictum, "He who knows his self, knows his Lord," is the philosophical cornerstone of the entire work. This knowledge is not a superficial understanding of one's personality or desires, but a deep inquiry into the nature of the soul. Ghazali guides the reader to understand that the human being is not merely a physical body but a complex entity composed of several faculties. He presents a tripartite model of the soul, or the inner being. The animal soul nafs amara, this is the lowest faculty, the seat of worldly desires, passions, and base instincts. It is the part of us that is driven by the immediate gratification of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. The intellect akl, this is the rational faculty, the faculty of reason and logic. It is the guiding principle, the pilot of the ship of the soul. However, the intellect on its own is limited and can be corrupted by the desires of the animal soul. The heart kalb, this is the spiritual core, the true essence of the human being. The heart is the locus of divine knowledge, the mirror for the divine light. It is a subtle, spiritual substance that, if polished, can reflect the reality of God. The alchemical process begins with this self-knowledge. The seeker must first become aware of the nature of their own soul and the constant battle between the animal soul and the intellect for control of the heart. The spiritual path is the process of subduing the animal soul, empowering the intellect to guide, and purifying the heart to become a fit dwelling place for the divine. Ghazali further expands on this in his analysis of the four inner qualities of man, which correspond to the four spiritual forces within every individual: the animalistic Belamia, the wild Sabia, the satanic Shataniya, and the divine Rabbaniya. The animalistic force is the source of our appetites. The wild is the source of our anger and aggression, and the satanic is the source of our cunning, deception, and pride. The divine force is the source of our longing for God. The spiritual path, in this context, is the process of subduing the first three forces and elevating the fourth, allowing the divine spark within to shine forth. Part 2. The knowledge of God. Once the seeker has a clear understanding of their own self, Ghazali guides them to the next stage of the alchemical process, the knowledge of God, Mrifat Allah. This is the culmination of self-knowledge, for as Ghazali argues, by knowing the microcosm of the self, one can come to know the macrocosm of the divine. The human being is the perfect reflection of the divine, and a purified heart is the clearest mirror. Ghazali teaches that the knowledge of God is not an abstract theological speculation, but a profound experiential realization. This knowledge is gained by contemplating the names and attributes of God, al-Asma, al-Husna. True knowledge of God is not to simply memorize His names, but to see their manifestations in the world and alone, more importantly, in one's own self. For example, to know the name Al-Rahman, the All-Merciful, is not just to know that God is merciful, but to experience His mercy in every aspect of one's life and to become a channel for that mercy to others. This contemplative and experiential approach to theology is a hallmark of Ghazali's spiritual thought. Central to this knowledge is the profound doctrine of Tawhid, the oneness of God. Ghazali teaches that Tawhid is not just a profession of faith, but a state of being, where one sees God as the ultimate source and cause of all things. It is the realization that nothing in the universe has power or existence except by the will and power of God. This state of Tawhid dismantles all forms of dualistic thinking, all attachments to worldly causes and effects. It is a state of complete surrender and trust in God, where the seeker understands that God is the sole agent in the universe. This knowledge of divine unity is the elixir that completes the alchemical process, transforming the base metal of the soul into the pure gold of a heart that is fully surrendered to God. Ghazali also connects this knowledge to the Quranic idea of the soul's primal covenant with God. He reminds the reader that the human soul, before its descent into the physical world, was in the presence of God and made a covenant with Him. The yearning for God, the longing for truth and beauty, is an innate memory of this pre-existence. The spiritual path, therefore, is not a journey to a distant place, but a journey of remembrance. A journey of returning to our original state of union with the divine. Part 3. The knowledge of this world and the next world. With the foundation of self-knowledge and divine knowledge firmly established, Ghazali turns his attention to the practicalities of living a spiritual life in a temporal world. This is where his work truly shines, as a balanced and moderate guide, steering the seeker away from both worldly excess and monastic extremism. The knowledge of this world, Mafat al-Dunya. The third section of the book is a guide to understanding the nature of this world. Ghazali does not condemn the world in itself. He teaches that the world is a field of cultivation for the next world, a bridge to be crossed, not a home to be built upon. The danger lies not in the world itself, but in our attachment to it. Ghazali makes a crucial distinction between necessary worldly needs, which are a means to an end, and excessive worldly desires, which are an end in themselves. The seeker must learn to use the world without being used by it. He uses the metaphor of a ship. The world is like a ship, and the seeker is like a passenger. The ship is a means of transportation, but if a passenger begins to collect too many things and builds a home on the ship, they will eventually sink. The spiritual path is about traveling light, letting go of the attachments that weigh the soul down. Ghazali's wisdom here is profoundly relevant in our modern age, where consumerism and materialism have become the dominant religions. He reminds the seeker that true happiness is not to be found in the accumulation of wealth, power, or pleasure, but in a state of inner contentment and detachment. This state is the direct result of the alchemical process of purifying the heart and knowing God. The knowledge of the next world, Mafayatol Akira. The fourth and final section of the book is a guide to the next world. Ghazali argues that the knowledge of the afterlife is a powerful motivator for spiritual transformation. The fear of hell and the hope of heaven are not just theological concepts, but psychological tools that God uses to motivate humanity toward righteousness. Ghazali presents the afterlife not as a distant, abstract reality, but as an immediate and ever-present consequence of one's actions. The spiritual state one cultivates in this world will be the reality one experiences in the next. For Ghazali, the ultimate bliss of heaven is not merely the enjoyment of its physical pleasures, but the ultimate spiritual ecstasy of beholding the face of God. The highest state of happiness is a state of consciousness where the veil between the servant and the Lord is lifted. This is the final stage of the alchemical process where the purified soul, having completed its journey, finds its ultimate rest and happiness in the unmediated presence of the divine. The Kimya-ye Sa'adat thus concludes by pointing the seeker to this ultimate destination, where the search for happiness comes to an end in the eternal joy of divine union. In conclusion, Imam al-Ghazali's Kimya-ye Sa'adat is a masterpiece of spiritual pedagogy, a work that distills the complexities of Islamic spirituality into a practical, accessible, and profoundly insightful guide. Its central metaphor of alchemy provides a powerful framework for understanding the process of spiritual purification, guiding the seeker through the four essential stages of self-knowledge, divine knowledge, and a balanced understanding of this world and the next. Ghazali's enduring legacy lies in his ability to show that true happiness is not an external possession, but an internal state of a tranquil heart that knows itself and through that knowledge knows its creator. The alchemy of happiness is a testament to the belief that the path to God is open to all, and that with sincerity and perseverance, every individual has the potential to turn the dross of their worldly existence into the pure gold of everlasting spiritual bliss. Thank you for joining us on this intellectual and spiritual journey. Please subscribe to our channel to continue our exploration of the rich and profound essence of Sufism.